is we'll go through our agenda like we did last time, and I'll talk a bit about what's coming up in a second here. But the first thing on our agenda is to do our roll call, as we did last time, very official. So I'll go ahead and call our October Equity and Inclusion Commission meeting to order. Very much our professional stuff that we gotta do. So we'll do that at 6:32. We are still expecting Annika to join us. Annika informed me earlier this evening that she'd be a little bit late, so Annika will join us when she can. So she'll get here when she can. So I'm gonna go through the roll call, so if y'all are cool with that, I will call y'all out. So Commissioner Gedkin, right? Is that right? Commissioner Gedkin.
Say here.
You can say here, yeah. All right, Commissioner Vemi Reddy.
Here.
All right, Commissioner LaGrange.
Here.
Commissioner Chan.
Here.
And I'm Antonio Montez, the staff liaison to the Equity and Inclusion Commission. So excited to be with y'all tonight in October. We will do our public comment. We always have to receive public comment. So I'll look and see if anyone's here for public comment. I don't see anyone.
Got a lot to say tonight.
You know, folks are really excited to share their thoughts with us. So we have no one here for public comment, and so we'll close that item on our agenda. We close the roll call. And the next thing that we have to do is approve our minutes from September, our meeting in September. So I shared with you on September that we have someone that transcribes the minutes for our meeting. Those go online as a part of our agenda packet. And so we should probably look at that so that you all see it and then can know how to access it if you need to. So what I'll do then is pull that up quickly if y'all are cool with that. So if you go to whatever search engine you prefer, and then do City of Roseville, Minnesota. You know there's a Roseville, California. I don't know if you know that, but if you do Roseville, you'll often go to the California. So,
Better Roseville though.
what'd you say?
Ours better.
100%. We are the best Roseville, 100%. So if you go here, this is the Roseville homepage, and then you go to your government, and there's a bunch of stuff here. If you ever wanted to look at our equity and inclusion stuff, it's under racial equity and inclusion right now. What I was gonna point out for you all though is our, let's see here, I gotta look over here. Our meeting schedule or meeting packets you can go to, but we'll go to meeting schedule. Let's see if it pops up here. Wait, hold on, that's for the city council. Don't go to that one. Agendas and meetings. Yes, here we go. So you go to your government, you go to agendas and meetings, and usually like the next upcoming meetings will be here. So because we're the next, obviously tonight we're right here, but otherwise I think you can look at various dates specifically and it'll show you like the Equity and Inclusion Commission. But if you get to this link, you could watch the Equity and Inclusion Commission live. So you asked about that, Commissioner Chan. So if folks aren't here and you're just really like, I just want to see the meeting live, you can watch our meetings live because they're broadcasted by our 9 North partners. And then you can also view the agendas and the minutes from the meeting. So we're going to go to the meeting minutes, and then we're going to go to our Equity and Inclusion Commission, which is here. When I click on this, this is kind of like the central hub of the meeting, if you will. So it gives you your agenda here. So these are all the agenda items. But if you want to see it like in a traditional agenda deal, you can click this meeting files on the left. Do you see this over here? And then there's different options. So the agenda packet, we print one of those. It's available in the back. That includes all the stuff that you would need to participate in the meeting, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about our Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. So that's a part of our agenda packet. Again, you can see the agenda. These are the meeting minutes here under the approved minutes from September 19th. So this has all the stuff. Here's the commissioners that are present. That's why we do our commissioner call out. We have our youth commissioners. No commissioners were absent, so you see none there. And it just goes through all the really relevant stuff that we talked about. So you can see here overview. Well, the administration of oath, if you remember that, City Manager Patrick Trudgeon did that with you all last month. Then we went through an overview of our equity and inclusion work. So there's some notes here on what we talked about, what was shared, just so that we're transparent with what's happening and what's being discussed in these meetings, and we're accessible. So you can see it talks a little bit about, so we talked last time about what reservations you may have, what are you excited about. So this just says these folks shared these things.
Who writes this?
So we have someone that transcribes this for us. It's a third party that will transcribe the meeting after we're done. So it's a nice feature to be accessible and transparent with community about the things that we're talking about. So I review these and then they get posted. And so when we come together, we review them and then we have to approve them to say, yes, this was what happened during that meeting. So to that point, how would you all like to approve these minutes? Do we need some time to sit with them and read them? What would you like to do? Otherwise, the official would be we'd have a motion to approve the minutes. We'd have a second on that, and then we'd take it to a vote. And then if you were comfortable approving the minutes and the vote passed, then that would happen. If not, then it would not pass, and we probably need to move it over to the next meeting.
I'm comfortable from your scan of the screen,
Mhm.
putting forward a motion to
Okay.
approve the minutes as reviewed.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Commissioner LaGrange and properly seconded by Commissioner Vemi-Reddy to approve our minutes as presented here in the agenda packet. Do we have any? Hey, good evening, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good, thanks for making it tonight, appreciate you. Give you that so folks know that you're here. I'll let the record show that Commissioner Bars has arrived, so thank you for coming this evening. Excited to be here. I was just showing folks how to access our agendas and any information that you maybe would want to look back on, or as we're coming together for our future meetings, any of the stuff that you all would want access to would be here on the agenda stuff. So
moving forward, for myself, I would then read it before come to meeting. Now, you send the meeting invitation out for the next year already. So I was gonna hope that if you would have added, say, hey, review the meeting notes from last time before come to meeting would be good. Don't even add the statement. But we should be able to remind ourselves.
I can send a reminder.
Yeah,
That's
so that'd
totally
be
fine.
good. Then we can just go through the right process.
Excellent. I can do that. Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes as presented here. It's properly seconded. Do we need any more discussion, or are we ready to move to a vote? All right, so we moved properly seconded. So all those in favor, let's do aye, if that works for you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Excellent. Motion passes. We'll accept the meeting minutes to be approved as presented in the agenda packet for our September 19th meeting. Appreciate y'all. All right, so the next item on our agenda is our first business item meeting. Our business item agenda meeting is our new commissioner orientation. So I wasn't able to coordinate, obviously, a time where it worked for everybody, so my apologies on that. So I figured we would spend some time talking about that tonight and answering any questions that you all may have about some of the rules that kind of govern our commission as it relates to like how we meet, how we do things, how we do our business and things like that. So that's kind of the first thing on the agenda. But y'all remember, we always start with relationship because that's really important. So I'm gonna open the floor if anyone has any relationship builders that you're really excited about that you'd like to share with us, or I can ask you a question. So let me know if you have any icebreakers that you'd be interested in hearing more from people about.
Maybe like a fun memory that you remember from maybe the summer?
Summer highlights.
Yeah, summer highlights.
Well, then you gotta start. No, I'm
Okay.
joking. You don't have to start. You don't have to start. Okay, so, yeah, what's your funnest memory from this past summer?
I can start. A fun memory was me and my family and two of my cousins. We went to Michigan to go visit my great grandma, and then at the hotel we went to the swimming pool. And I never really knew how to swim until then, so I got to practice
Really?
my swimming a little bit.
Very cool. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think my favorite part of the summer was probably biking to like the beach with my neighbors.
I went to Six Flags in LA, and on the roller coaster, I saw a famous person. Like he was a famous soccer player, and he came up the exit sign, which of course, because you're famous, you get that stuff. And so then I just rode a roller coaster with him. That's kind of cool. And it was just like in that moment, he was not famous. He was just a person who enjoyed roller coasters, like me, and we just rode a roller coaster together.
So who was it?
His name is Jude Bellingham.
You got to see Jude? We're big soccer fans in my house, so that's
and,
huge.
And Trent, they're friends. I guess they went on vacation
yeah.
to LA together. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's hard to follow that.
I know, right?
But you know, any memory could be a good one.
Oh, for sure.
My mom and my aunt, I'm originally from southern Indiana, almost Kentucky, and that's where all my family is. So they came up, my mom and aunt came up to visit, and they just spent a ton of time with my dog and my husband and our cats, and it was really meaningful to all be together.
I grew up in Louisville, so I've been.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We know. I fly into Louisville often to get to my family.
Well, a bunch of my friends that are pickleball friends also became hiking friends. So we went for a long weekend in Superior, Wisconsin, stay there, and they would hike the Wisconsin and Minnesota State Park. And one day we went up north of Duluth to a place called Bean and Bear Lake. It's like 9 miles up and down to the top of the, we had fun. And one of the friends surprised me. She made personal pink T-shirts. The joke is whenever people play pickleball, they forget the shoes, they forget the shirt, return to Alfred. So they just say, if lost, return to Alfred. Then my shirt said, I'm Alfred.
Return yourself to yourself, Alfred.
Yeah, so that was fun. We had a fun hike.
That's really cool. 9 miles, that's a long hike. Sheesh. Good for you. Very cool. Let's see here. What did I, busy summer. Probably we got to go to Kansas City for a soccer tournament. And when we were down there, we got to go check out the Sporting KC soccer team. So that was kind of fun to go there and just see. It was my first time seeing a different soccer stadium other than Allianz, which is like brand new. So yeah, it was cool. It was cool to go see and watch them play. I think they lost though, which is fine. But my kid had fun, so that was a fun time. Yeah, so soccer in Kansas City. Awesome. Appreciate y'all.
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. If you have any good icebreakers, bring them to this meeting, because then we get to know each other. So, Gwen, you're up next.
All right.
All right, so I'm gonna pull up our, let's see here, our new commissioner orientation slides and go through these. So, ask questions as they kind of come about. And as you have them, I'll do my best to answer them. But I'm the kind of person, what's this? This is not on my screen. There we go. I'm the kind of person that if I don't know the answer, I'll get it back to you. So ask questions as we go along and we'll kind of go from there. But super excited to have you all as a part of my commission. I've been talking up your praises in my work meetings. Like, I think we have a really good group of folks that are gonna do some really meaningful work and ask some really hard questions and hold us accountable. And I'm really excited about that because I think that's a really important piece as we talk about how we're going to advance equity and inclusion here at the city and in the community, is we need to do that together in partnership. So I'm excited that y'all are here sharing your talents and your energy and your time, most importantly, because time is the most valuable thing we have. So I'm thankful to you all for being here with me tonight and in the future. So I appreciate y'all. So that said, we'll get into some of the less fun stuff. So we did some welcome and introductions, as you all have already known. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the city. This is really high level. I still intend to do a little bit of more of a robust review of the organization itself so that you all can feel really comfortable and invite some of my peers and colleagues in that are leaders in departments to help us get really understanding of what they want to do and how they're doing their work. So that will come. But this is just kind of our quick touch point on like the need to know stuff so that we can continue to do our work together as a commission. So I'm your staff liaison. You're stuck with me for better or for worse, hopefully for better. And we're gonna do some really fun stuff. So let's get started here. We talked a little bit about last month about our community aspirations. And so here, this is just kind of here's what a community aspiration is. And I think we're probably relatively familiar with what our aspirations are, but I think what I would just share is these are like our guiding principles that are hopefully gonna set the future for our community and how we're gonna do our work, right? It's the guiding principles or the decisions that we make are hopefully gonna be in support of the community aspirations. There'll be that basis for foundation. The North Star is some language that you've probably heard. And I think it's just really about like the important things that are impacting community and what community wants from us in those important things. And that's why I care about them a lot. And it's also why I think our equity and inclusion work has to be embedded into the aspirations and the way we do our work because our community is very diverse. We have lots of different folks in our community. So to do it from one perspective or from one lens just wouldn't be fair to the broad community that we serve. So you saw these last time we were together. These are the aspirations. And I think, what I see a lot here is, and you'll see it in bold, right? I think there's just a strong sense of community and connectedness, welcoming and inclusive, safe and secure, secure and diverse neighborhoods. We embrace diversity. We treasure and preserve natural areas, economic prosperity, safe, inclusive, and well-connected transportation systems, right? So those are the areas where a community have said, hey, we want these to be the things that we're making decisions about and we're investing in. So it's the aspirations. I think this is something where our Equity and Inclusion Commission has opportunity to continue to be influential, right? We had this conversation last month about racial equity, equity and inclusion. What does that mean? We're gonna spend some time in the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan tonight where there's already been definitions of like what does equity mean? What does inclusion mean? What does diversity mean? So we'll find some common language around that, but I think we still have some conversations to be had about some of the naming of race, right? So, but the vision for Roseville currently stands is we'll be a city where race does not predetermine opportunities in things like education, employment, housing, health, or safety, right? We don't want to be able to say, hey, this person based on their race or ethnicity is likely going to achieve this level of education and they're going to be a homeowner or they're not going to be a homeowner, they're going to earn this amount of money, right? We want to be able to say folks from all different backgrounds have the same opportunities to pursue whatever it is that they want, whether that is education or not education, whether that's to be a homeowner or not be a homeowner, right? But we want those access to opportunities to be the same, but we know they're not right now, right? The data tells us that, the studies show us that. So, but the vision is for us to be a community, be a city where race does not predetermine opportunities in education, employment, housing, health, or safety. Okay. Any questions about that? No. All right, excellent. So this is kind of that organizational structure piece. We'll do a more in-depth review of some of this work, but high level, Roseville residents are always at the point of like, what are we doing and how should we try to get there, right? Because we serve the residents and that's really important to us. And then obviously the residents elect the city council. And then from the Roseville residents are our commissioners, right? So you all are residents of Roseville, that's why you're at this table. So it's really about the Roseville residents who elect the city council. Roseville residents come forward to be city commissioners. And then the city council is really in charge of our city manager, right? So the city manager reports to the city council. And then under the city manager, Patrick Trudgeon, who you all met last month, we have these different areas of work. So on the very, very far left, we have our assistant city manager, Rebecca Olson. And Rebecca is the leader in our administration area. So when you think about things like human resources, you think about things like equity and inclusion, community relations, those are teams that report into Rebecca, and Rebecca leads our work and kind of sets the work plan and the vision and the strategy. Next is our community development director, which is a lot of like our economic development, a lot of our building review and like code inspections and things like that happens in community development. They do a lot more stuff than that. Janice would do a great job sharing all that, and my hope is to be able to bring that forward to you all. But that's your traditional like community and economic development area of the government organization. And stop me if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer. Next to that is Michelle. Michelle is our finance director, so all of your traditional finance stuff, right? Like budgeting, paying the bills, sending out bills, things like that come from our finance area. Roseville, we have our firefighters and fire team. So Chief Brosnahan, David Brosnahan is the person that leads that area. And that's a group of folks that respond to 911 fire emergency calls or medical emergency calls come out of our fire area. Parks and Recreation is next. So that's Matthew Johnson's team. And so they do obviously maintaining all of the beautiful park spaces that we have in Roseville and making sure those things are looking good. So we appreciate Matt for that. There's also a lot of programming that happens in Parks and Recreation. So a lot of the summer programming for youth, if you all have ever participated in any of that or been connected to it, happens in Parks and Recs. Our Parks and Recs also are the folks that run the Oval and the banquet facility across the street. So if you've ever been over there and done any skating, or been at the Oval for any events, that's our Parks and Recs team. So that's Matt's team. Next to Matt is the police, so our law enforcement agency. So Erica Scheider is the police chief. They do lots of really good stuff. I mean, beyond your normal, like, respond to emergencies, they're doing a lot of really good work. I'm excited about the work that they're doing and hope to be able to have Erica come in and talk about that a little bit. And then kind of the last area of our organization is Public Works. So Public Works is led by Jesse Freihammer, and that's really the team that does stuff like maintains your streets. When you have a snow emergency and we're clearing streets, that's Jesse's team, right? When we're making sure that the roads are nice and there's not a lot of potholes in them, that's Jesse's team. The one thing I would call out is many of the large intersections in Roseville are usually state and county owned. So like County Road B and Snelling. So Snelling is maintained by the state, and then County Road B is maintained by the county, right? So the like high frequency, high traffic intersections are normally state and county, and Jesse's team does something else. But we work closely with obviously the state and the county as we do that work. So if you're upset about the construction that was right outside the Target there, that wasn't City of Roseville. So just not joking. So great team there as well. So that's kind of the areas that we have that support the residents in the City of Roseville. What questions do you have? Do you have any?
No, I think it all makes sense. I think one thing I would like to do is like deep dive into these organizations, right, and how they function. One thing I'm very curious of is what Michelle's doing, specifically because I come from a finance background.
Yeah.
I work at 3M, so the way you do corporate finance and budgeting, I'm sure, is very different than a government, right?
Mhm.
And be curious, for a discussion with her. I don't know if she'd come in and speak to all of us, or I guess I don't know what we want to do is like a structure. If it can be more individualistic in like seeking different parts of this,
Yeah.
or we just have like maybe each of these organization leaders come in and speak and talk about the organization.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll just help us develop a better understanding and strategy on what we want to accomplish.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing to learn about that is to go on their website and look at things they do and things they publish, right? Because there'll be a lot more time efficient. Otherwise, you'll be going to a lot of meetings
Yeah.
to do that, because we have our focus of our own. But there's learning. All the meetings is in the website. All the meeting notes in the website. That might be a good place to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hear what you're saying. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that we can be in partnership and in connection, but at the same time, not dismissing our own focus in the work that we've come together to do, right? So how do we do that work of making sure that we're understanding of what everyone's doing, but not dismissing our work and our focus? I think you bring up a great point. There's lots of information on our website. You could watch all the meetings. We've presented some preliminary budgets to the council, so all that information is available. You can see the presentations from the city manager alongside our finance director and other folks that have kind of come forward with some of the budget presentation stuff. So all that's available online, so that's a great place to start. And then as we get more understanding of the organization and the way that it works, we could be a little bit more intentional about, if there's a specific thing, for example, that we're like, hey, I don't know, this happened, we can figure out how do we bring that to this group in a meaningful way.
Well, as part of the DEI strategic plan, would there be contact points with each of these organizations that we cooperate on, that they are enforcing certain things for whatever they do? Would there be contact points?
Yeah, great question. So as part of our strategy internally that we've developed, the goal is to develop, we talked about equity action plans for each department. And I really see us as being key partners in the way that departments are organizing their work around an equity action plan. So if that meant for finance, we wanted to, I don't know, an example of how we could, maybe we wanted some type of like community involved budgeting process, right? I don't know what that looks like, but if that was something that we thought would be beneficial and it would make sense, we could think about what would that look like in their equity action plan. That would be kind of a part of their work plan as they're looking at their next 12, 24, 36 months. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think we will have touch point based on things I've read.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. Oh, I thought you were asking me if we would. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we will too. Yes.
And so for the information that's on the website for the 2025 budget so far, is there any work plan information, or would it just be sort of numbers and budgetary?
It's a good question. This is my first budget season
Exciting.
with Roseville, so still learning how this all goes through. I think right now, most of the conversation has been about a number. What is the overall budget? And then what does that budget increase look like year over year? I know that departments have come forward with some budgeting. I'm not sure how much of that is shared regularly. So that could be something that maybe going back to what you all are talking about is what does that look like, right? How do we share that transparently if folks want to know more about it? So, more to come. Any questions? You don't have to,
Yeah.
but
I don't think I have any questions.
just want to make sure y'all are important here, so I want to make sure that we're doing that. All right, so, okay, I'll keep us moving along then. So, this is a bit about the commissioner's role, right? So, I think in the way that we'll be working, part of this is about making recommendations to the city council. We will have at least one joint meeting every year. That's kind of how things happen in Roseville with the city council. So we come together and have a meeting about things so that we can make recommendations based on the things that we've talked about, the things that you all have learned, the things that you're hearing in community around, hey, we want more information about the budget, whatever, right? Whatever that looks like. So I think that's part of it, is making recommendations to city council. Also, obviously, if there are things that you see from your perspective, your seat in the community, that we should address or do something by the council or the staff, that's a role of commissioners here. Education and awareness opportunities for residents on policy issues and concerns. And then collaborate with fellow commissioners and city staff to achieve the commission's goals effectively. So to your point, are we advancing equity and inclusion through whatever process we're looking at? So this is what the commission's roles are, commissioners' roles.
I would us as commissioner did number 3, how would we provide education awareness tour for our residents?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that when you learn the things that you learn here, and you all have your circles and networks and connections in the city, doing the things that you do, if we are working on something, I'm trying to think. For example, one of the things that I worked on recently was the bike pathway plan here at Roseville. So we have a pathway plan, and then we got an opportunity to focus specifically on biking, right? So how would we increase biking throughout the city of Roseville? What would it take for you as a resident to bike more in the city of Roseville? So that could have been an opportunity to help raise awareness, an opportunity to help educate, like what are our goals for our bike plan? How do we make sure folks know this is happening? So I think there's an opportunity for you to learn about some of those types of projects that are happening and help us, share with your network of folks that are in Roseville. Does that answer your question? Okay. That's a good question. I think, I also think too that like our commission is a little bit different than some of the other commissions, like the Finance Commission or the Planning Commission. Some of our work is not always super linear in the way that we're gonna do our work. So some of this I think will be more applicable than others, and we'll just kind of go on this journey together and grow and learn and hopefully cause some good trouble. That's what I like to do. So, all right. So, part of this is in terms of like the role of the commissioners, the way that we have kind of framed up this work is around the inform. As you can see on the far left, there's opportunity to consult, which is in the middle box, and then there's opportunity to involve or act, right? So in some cases, we maybe will study a specific issue or topic and share back what we've found from whatever it is that we're trying to study or we're trying to inform the council or the staff on, right? Maybe there's something that I have to be more aware of, right? There's the consult. So the commission could review a specific policy and make a formal recommendation to council. So we're always thinking about our policies, our practices, our procedures, our processes. So that could be a function of this group is to be partners in that and give just kind of that community perspective. If you were to do this, did you think about that, right? And then sometimes, in some cases, there's opportunity to initiate or take on a project approved by the council. So council could say, hey, we want to do X, whatever that is. And if you all were interested and you wanted to do that, that's something that we could try to find a pathway forward on making happen. So, any questions about that? So the expectations for you all as commissioners is to attend the meetings or let us know in advance if you're not able to attend. So if you can't make a meeting, that's okay, right? Like I'm not gonna be upset with you. I'll be bummed because you don't wanna hang out with me, but if you can't make a meeting, just let us know. And this is really because we have to have enough folks to make it worth everyone's time. So if we have a meeting where folks are gonna all be out, then it's like, let's just cancel the meeting instead of having 2 people show up, right? We have to have a quorum, which is enough folks to be able to do our work together. So it's just, just let us know. Just participate. That's what I would say here. Life happens. So just be willing participants in the meeting is what I would say for that one. Engage in discussions, ask questions, contribute ideas. I'm very much the type of person that's like, we do this work together. I don't want to be the person that's like, I know everything. I learn just as much from you all as we come together. And so I want you all to be like, yeah, let's do this. Or let's think about this. Or have you thought about that? So I hope to not have any assignments or tasks for you all because I recognize how busy we are. But sometimes there's stuff that like I can't control that we had, like all the stuff you had to do to get your shirt. You know, it's something that I can't control, so apologize. And then obviously, folks see the commissions as kind of a part of the city agency, right? The city government. So when you're out and about and just, think about how we want to show up as a city, those community aspirations that we talked about, those are things that we value. So just making sure that those are things that we're thinking about as we're out doing our stuff. Any questions about expectations?
Quick question, what is the minimum quorum, I guess, for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have 6 folks, right? Is it 6? So we'd have to have 4 folks here for a quorum. Mhm.
Yeah, what would the assignments be, or is that just like what you said about the shirt?
Yeah, I mean, assignments or tasks could be like, oh, you got to do your background check, or you got to do the, what is it? There's another training y'all had to do. Don't click links in your emails that you get. Did y'all have to do that? Did you see that one? No? Okay. Well, there's a training. Okay, there's a training just some trainings you got to do. So that's some of it. I could think about if you're like the planning commission, for example, is going to review a request for, I don't know, using a piece of land. And so then you've got to there might be an assignment to say, here's the paperwork and background on this particular request. And you should be informed before you make a decision, because oftentimes, the commissions will make a vote that will inform the council to say, yeah, the planning commission agrees with this request to use this piece of land this way, right? So then the council's like, oh, well, the planning commission agreed to it. So it's just, those were the kinds of things.
Mhm.
I hope to not have a lot of those, but we might.
And the background check was what we did to get the shirt, right?
I think that was part of it, yeah.
Just making sure I did that.
Yeah, no, I think you're all good. Don't worry about it. So, all right. Any other questions?
That quorum, is it based on percentage? Because you said 6 and then 4, is it like a percentage of the total number?
It's usually a percentage. I can get an answer for you specifically though, so I'll write that down. It might be in here. I think we do talk about quorum, so let's see if it's in here. This is how you would get involved with Roseville. So you'd be on our website. On the far right, there's that I want to tab. I want to. So you kind of hover over that, and then this box pops up, and then you see there's some stuff that you can get involved in there. Volunteer opportunities, Parks and Recs programming, water and sewer services. We do a lot of water and sewer stuff here. So if you ever have to pay a water bill, you're calling into this office here. So that's what they're showing there. So here's what I got to do. This is my job. So I'm the link between city council and the commission. So if you have things you need or you want, feel free to reach out to me. I prepare the agenda and any supporting materials. We have not elected a chair, so we got to do that tonight. But I'll work with the chair to identify those things. Provide guidance and support to commissioners and any issues or procedures that are happening. So that's kind of my role. Answer any questions that come up during the meeting. Facilitate any coordination between the commission and any staff members. So to your point, if we were to have the finance director come in and give us a high-level overview of the budget process, I'd be the person that would make sure that Michelle is around. And then, again, any communication between the commission and the council, I'd be the person to help that happen. That's my role. All right, tips for new commissioners, if you haven't already done so. You can sign up for our e-news. We send out these bi-monthly newsletters. I don't know if y'all get those or not.
Specific to this commission? Or this is Roseville in general? Okay.
Big city stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, no, big city stuff.
I affectionately read the newsletter.
Do you?
Don't you too? Yeah.
They've been asking me they want to talk with us about our commission work, but I'm like, hey, let us get settled first, and then we want to talk. But there will probably be an article about our commission in one of the upcoming newsletters. Visit the website, sign up for council agenda notices, so you can set up a notification for all of the meetings, so that it can just kind of send you an email saying, oh, hey, the city council agenda is posted for this meeting. So that way you can see what's happening in the city. Just stay organized if you can. Keep your commission email separate from your personal emails. If you can do that, I recommend it. Because obviously it's all public information. So if someone is like, hey, Antonio emailed Commissioner LaGrange, I want to see that email, that could happen. So try to keep them separate if you can. We do offer city email, so if that's something you're interested in, you could get a city email. Come to the meetings, obviously, and then if you have questions, reach out.
Would it be a good thing for us to all get a city email? Because it's actually very difficult to keep it separate from your personal email. So some people have to have a backup email for recovery.
Yeah.
And trying to keep too many emails is already too difficult. So do you recommend us to all get a city email for that purpose, if it's important?
I think it's just about what's your comfort level. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but I also recognize that means you probably have to check a different email. So I would say it's your personal preference and what are you comfortable with, and go from there. I know our youth commissioners have city emails, so they can be, we have to put emails on the website. That's a thing that has to happen. So if you want a city email, let us know. We can get that set up for you. So just let me know.
Okay.
Let me know.
All right, thanks.
Do you mean city emails like our school emails? Or
No, so you all got this is something I had to talk with you all about specifically.
Okay.
But you have like it's like your first name dot last name at cityofroseville.com. So you have a city email because we have to post your emails online, and obviously for protection, we didn't want to be like, hey, here's Gwen's personal email. So if you have a city email that you all have, that we have to do some steps so that you all then can get access to those emails. So if you want a city email, that's an option. If not, for our youth commissioners, you have to have the city email. For you all, if you want a city email, just let me know.
Yeah, do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Me too, if possible.
Okay.
And that replaces the one that we put in for the form. Yeah, that's great.
So quorum, we talked about that a little bit. That's the minimum number of members required to be present at a meeting to conduct official business. I'll get information more, Praj, and bring it back to what that number is exactly, because it doesn't say here. All right, data practice law. So legislation, that's legislation that governs the collection, storage, and dissemination of data by government entities in Minnesota. It ensures transparency while protecting privacy rights. So in general, most of obviously our meetings and any communication that we send via email is generally gonna be open to the open data law. So if a reporter is like, hey, I wanna see that email that you sent to your commission, they can request that, and we have to send them that information. So that's just transparency in government and the way that we're trying to be open to community. Open meeting law is legislation that mandates that meetings of government bodies will be open and accessible to the public. It aims to promote transparency and accountability in decision-making processes. So that's why we have to come to this physical location and meet here and make sure there's no public comments or there are public comments. That's a part of our commitment as government agencies to be open and accessible and transparent to public. We use this already, motions. So motions are a formal proposal made by a member during a meeting seeking approval or disapproval on a particular matter. So that's a part of the Robert's Rules of Orders. If you've ever seen that, it's just a way of conducting a meeting that helps us move the meeting forward. So one of my favorite writings is Robert Rules of Orders, kind of like the intro thing that just helps me get a real good grasp on how do you do that and what does it mean. So that's a motion. So you'll hear me say sometimes I'm entertaining a motion is to help us know we need to have a motion to do something. Not to be weird. Questions? So open meeting law, a couple of things we want y'all to know about. Every public meeting must be properly noticed. That obviously prohibits secret meetings, right? So we can't just have a little meeting like, oh, hey, y'all come in tomorrow and let's meet, right? Like that's against the rules. We need to make sure that the community knows we're meeting and that we are letting folks know that we're meeting. The public has the right to attend and observe decision-making processes by a governing body. And that's really just because we want folks to be informed and we want to be transparent and we want folks to know what we're talking about and what we're doing. Open meeting law doesn't require public participation, but it does not prohibit it, which is why your city council meetings, our meeting, always opens with the opportunity for public comment. So if folks want to come and say anything, they have the opportunity to do so. Any questions about those? Okay. So part of that is like, what's a meeting? So this maybe gets to your question here, Praj. Quorum, the majority or more of a full public body. So a majority would be more than 50%, right? So if we have 6 folks, 4 would be a majority because that's more than 3, right? Yeah. Okay. So majority or more full public body. Quorum discusses, decides, or receives information as a group on issues relating to its official business. So that's what makes it a meeting, right? Is that we have a quorum. So we have 4 or more people. And then the quorum, we discuss, decide, or get information as a group on issues related to equity and inclusion. So gatherings that are not covered by the law, so if we have a meeting with less than a quorum, it's not covered by law because we can't really do any business. You can't make any decisions if you don't have a quorum of the group. So if we had 2 people here, 2 people can't make a decision for the entire commission because it's not the majority. If we run into each other by chance at a social gathering or in the community, that's not covered by open meeting law, obviously. And then any trainings or team building are also not covered by open meeting law. Questions about those? Serial meetings. So serial meetings are something that we don't want to do, which is basically, it's an attempt to try to do business without being subject to the open meeting law, right? So that'd be like if we had a bunch of small meetings with less than a quorum, which means we wouldn't have to have an open meeting, but we kind of came to an agreement or a decision on something, but we didn't have the quorum and like an open meeting. So people with we wouldn't do this at Roseville, but you could do small one-off meetings along the way to help you get to a decision. You obviously can't do that. We don't want you to do that. So no serial meetings. And then penalties, there's obviously penalties that if we don't adhere to the open meeting law, if you have intentional violations, there's a personal liability of up to $300 fine, 3 intentional violations, you could forfeit the office, and then any reasonable costs, disbursements, or attorney fees that could be associated with anything that came as a result of that. Ultimately, we don't want that to happen. We want to do our work in open, with public knowing what's happening, making decisions in the best interest, and informing the council in the best interest of community and thinking about all the different lived experiences that we have. So that's what we got. Welcome to Roseville. Any questions? All right. This was for information purposes only, so we don't have to make any motions or anything like that. So we're good there. So I'm gonna hide this for a second. The next thing on our agenda is our chair and vice chair elections. So we didn't do that last time we got together. So what I would like to do is just quick, the chair, we talked about that a little bit in the presentation. The chair will work alongside me to set agendas and to move these meetings forward and our work forward. So I really see this as a partner, a community partner, in the way that we're gonna do equity and inclusion work in the commission and hopefully more broadly across the city. That's the chair role. And then the vice chair role is one that has traditionally been more of like the records keeping and helping us make sure that we're keeping all the really relevant and information that is relevant to our commission. So that's kind of the two positions that we need to elect tonight. I also want to mention, we don't need to do this tonight, but we have an ethics commission at Roseville, which is made up of one member from the other standing commission. So like one from Equity and Inclusion, one from the Planning Commission, one from Parks and Recs Commission. So a member, one from the Finance Commission. One person from each commission sits on the Ethics Commission. That commission meets once a year. And they're also in place to like review any ethics violations that would be reported or come forward. So we do need to have someone be our Ethics Commission representative, but we could go into that next meeting. We don't have to do that tonight. Unless you're like, it's my jam, sign me up, I wanna do that, which I'd take your interest in that. So any questions about the chair position or the vice chair position? Around the scope of the work? No, okay. So what we'll do then first is I will open up nominations for the chair of our commission. And so what that means is you can nominate yourself if you're interested in being the chair. You can nominate another person if you're interested in being the chair. And so that's what that means. So I will open the nominations for the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission.
Nominate Annika and Gwen for either one of those.
For either one of those. So you're nominating both youth commissioners for chair and vice chair. Okay, all right. So then I need to ask you all, and don't feel like you have to do it, right? It's like if it's like you're like, no, that's not what I want to do, it's totally cool, don't feel pressure. So then I would ask you, let's see here, Annika, you've been nominated for the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. Is that a nomination that you would like to accept or you would like to decline?
Wait, can you explain the role again?
Yeah, so the chair is would work alongside me as the staff liaison for like setting our agendas, which would ultimately set our direction as a commission in the work that we're gonna do. And you would run the meetings. So I'd be a part of that as well, but you know, you'd be a part of like calling the votes and things like that as the chair of the commission. You can totally decline if you want to, that's okay.
I think I want to decline.
Okay.
I have to say it like right now, my answer.
You need a second to think about it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, I'm gonna go to Gwen then, around the chair. So Gwen, you've been nominated for the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. Do you have any questions, or are you prepared to accept or decline? Totally up to you.
What does the vice chair do?
Yeah, so the vice chair is more like the record keeping, which I think is, when we obviously have someone that does notes for us, right? So it wouldn't be anything like that. But I think when I think the vice chair would be really critical in the way that we continue to do this work longer range to make sure that information is shared from when new commissioners come on board and things like that, that information is shared across new commissioners and kind of the next leadership team.
Take a second to think.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we've got two folks thinking. Let me know when you've.
Okay. Wait, so one more question. So if the chair would be like, it would be communication outside of meetings as well with you, or?
Yeah, ideally, not like all the time, but we'd probably talk once or twice in between meetings, probably just so we get our agenda and we're prepared for our meeting. I realize that could be difficult with being a student, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm getting used to kind of bouncing out of school at the year started, so YOLO, I'ma do it.
Okay, so you'll accept the nomination
Of the chair.
of the chair. Okay, so Annika accepted the nomination of the chair. Awesome, thank you. Very cool.
I'll accept whichever other one there is.
So that'd be the vice chair. Okay, very cool. All right. Okay, thank you. So we don't vote on those yet. So we have Annika and Gwen nominated and accepted for the chair and vice chair. So nominations are still open. So if you are interested in either of those positions, you can nominate or nominate yourself. So I will leave the nominations open. All right. Any other nominations? This is one of those Robert's Rules of Order things I have to ask multiple times. So, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? No? Okay. I don't think I'm breaking any rules here because you all are full participants in voting members of the commission. So I think what we could do then is if there's no other nominations for the chair and vice chair, I would close the nominations for chair and vice chair. And then we would move them to a vote. Just to make sure we're all good.
I would love to motion that we vote on
Okay.
these nominations.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that first let's entertain a motion to close the nomination period for the chair and vice chair. So can I have a motion to close the nomination period for the chair and vice chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission?
Moved.
So moved. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded by Commissioner LaGrange and Commissioner Remy Reddy that we close the nominations for chair and vice chair. So that said, we'll go to a vote just to make sure that we cover all of the things that we need to cover. So Annika's been nominated and accepted the nomination to be the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. So we'll vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Annika, congratulations. You are the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. You're here. All right. We'll do the same thing for the vice chair. So, Gwen, you've been nominated and accepted the nomination for the vice chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Gwen. You're the vice chair of the Equity and Inclusion Commission. So good stuff. That was easy. Anyone interested in the Ethics Commission? Is that like your thing? We can come back to it next month. That's totally fine. I think that meeting happens in April.
Is that like you take the information that we like learn or get here and then you bring it to that meeting? And
I think it's more about like if someone says that there's been like an ethics violation on behalf of the city, then that commission would convene and be like the commissioner group that would kind of review that and make recommendations.
You say you only meet once a year?
Traditionally, yes, unless there is a reason to meet that would come up before that. But generally, it's my understanding that commission meets once a year.
Because if something happens mid-year, then they will wait until the end of the year.
They would meet because it's kind of like a meet as needed. It's like an ad hoc commission that would meet as needed. Something happened, and then the commission says, we gotta get together, and then they schedule some time to get together, and then they do their business. Give it some thought, you wanna think about it? Okay, all right, we'll come back to it. All right, sweet. Whew, took longer than I expected, sorry y'all. Important stuff though. Congratulations, looking forward to doing this. Congratulations, looking forward to doing this thing. We're gonna have some fun. So we have 30 minutes, and my plan is to always get y'all out of here on time. I don't wanna take more time than what you already have given over to us. So what I'd like to do is let's start the review of the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. It's a pretty lengthy document, so we'll stay kind of high level. And then that'll maybe give us some time to review it before, and then we'll bring it back up for our next meeting and finish our conversation. How does that sound? Sound all right? Okay. All right, I'll pull it up in here. Let me see. Here we go. And you can find this online also, the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. This is on our Racial Equity and Inclusion tab for the city on the website. I'm trying to zoom in here. Oops. Can y'all see that okay? All right. So this happened in 2021. And you can see that it was a partnership with some city folks, Thomas Brooks, who was my predecessor in this role here at Roseville, and then Rebecca Olson, who's our assistant city manager. And they worked with a consultant, Culture Brokers, to develop this Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. And so here you can see the mission: provide ethical, efficient, and responsive local government in support of community aspirations, guided by policies of the City Council and implemented by professional staff to ensure that Roseville remains strong, vibrant, and sustainable for current and future generations. That was the mission of what we wanted to do with this document. You've seen these aspirations. This is kind of the shorter version, right? So welcoming, inclusive, respectful, safe and law-abiding, some of those things that we've talked about a couple of times. So that's a guiding part of this document, and I think it's a guiding part of our work because community has said we want a welcoming, inclusive, and respectful community. One thing, I shared this with you all last time we were together, the inclusion and respect statement. This kind of goes across these 2 pages, so sorry that it's kind of weird formatting. So you've seen this before. This is also on our website, and to me, this is just about saying, hey, everyone in our community, when you interact with us and you interact with each other, this is our expectation, right? Like, you as a resident of Roseville, you're going to treat people with respect and be inclusive of everyone, regardless of their identity and all these things that we talk about here. Race, color, creed, religion, national origin, gender, marital status, familial status, immigration status, sexual orientation, age, income, or disability. Our expectation is that you'll be inclusive and respectful of everyone. So, part of the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan is that there's a racial equity narrative, in kind of going back to our conversation around, is racial equity too narrow? Is equity and inclusion the focus that we should be talking about? And so the Racial Equity Action Plan has a racial equity narrative as a part of it, right? So the first sentence basically says we don't want race or ethnicity to predict life outcomes. We talked about that a little bit in the new commissioner orientation. And then it just talks about some of the history, right? So when you look at history and a lot of things that government did along the way and made decisions have created disparities in a lot of the things that we see in community, right? When you talk about owning homes, you can look at redlining and how folks either had access or did not have access to purchase homes. And if they could purchase homes, there were areas that they couldn't get into, right? With racial covenants, right? If you're familiar with racial covenants, there's language specifically written into deeds on homes that said you could not sell this home to insert, identity, whether it's Black or it's Asian or it's whatever. You just can't sell to anyone that's non-white, right? So that's just a part of how government denied access to homeownership for many communities, right? So government has made decisions through policy, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, that have created disparities that we see in our outcomes today. So as part of our racial equity narrative here at Roseville, we lift up that we're going to prioritize racial equity in planning, delivery, and evaluation of programs, policies, and services. So the City of Roseville is committed to taking tangible steps to normalize, organize, and operationalize racial equity principles and tools with an eye toward impactful and sustainable outcomes that create a more equitable community. So that's a lot. What questions do you have? Do you have questions?
I'm thinking about the timing of this, so it was 2021.
Mm.
So, I mean, 2020 would have been pandemic life, the uprising. Do we have any context on what motivated this to be created for 2021?
Yeah, I think it's what we get into in the next piece, right? So some of the background, is that what you're asking? So, our racial equity work here at Roseville kind of became organized and focused in 2018. So a small group of folks came together and participated in a program offered by the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which is GARE. It's a third-party organization, and GARE really was kind of on the front end of centering racial equity in conversations and decision-making, in government agencies. So, in many agencies, as needs shifted and as communities started to say, hey, we're not serving our entire community the way that we could be, GARE was kind of on the front end of helping government agencies figure out what does that mean and how do we do that. So GARE did a training program, and with that training program, that Roseville group of folks developed the racial equity narrative and started a strategic plan of specific actions the city could take to improve racial equity. So membership in this group has changed since that time, and it was at the time in 2021 the DEI strategy team for Roseville's racial equity work. The primary role of that team is to evaluate, recommend, and help implement activities, programs, and campaigns that further the development and adoption, monitoring, and reporting of this strategic racial equity action plan. So is that the context that you were thinking?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So that happened, and so some of the stuff that they did. So snow plowing and on-street parking. This was a big thing, as you can imagine, right? Because what oftentimes happens is, okay, we have a snow emergency, it snows, and we have to clear the roads so that people can, live, because you got to be able to drive around safely, right? So what happens most of the time is there's a snow emergency, the city will declare that there's a snow emergency, which then means you can't park in certain parts of the city. You can only park on one side of the city, right, to help so that these big old snowplows can get through and effectively clear the street so that people can use them. And what makes that difficult, obviously, is if there are cars parked on the street. Well, when you look at how folks get information, who gets information, who gets it in a timely enough fashion to be able to do something, oftentimes what you end up finding is that certain parts of our community we're not in really good relationship with, we don't have good communication with, we don't have good connection with, so those communities may not know that there's a snow emergency. And then what ends up happening sometimes, and we don't do this anymore, you'll see this, but like sometimes, a car would get towed because it was on a non-park during a snow emergency. Well, then that means that, you've not only towed a person's car, now they have to go get it out the impound lot, they have to pay to get out the impound lot. It just becomes this cycle, right, of like, you really don't want that. You don't want to have, wake up at 5 a.m. or whatever time and your car is towed. Now you got to go spend time getting it out of the impound lot, spend money that you may not have had or didn't want to spend, didn't plan to spend. And so it just becomes this really snowball kind of effect, for lack of a better term, when we're talking about snow. Pun intended, right? So, and again, what we found is that this disproportionately impacted our different communities, right? Generally speaking, our BIPOC communities. So the city said, well, we want to do something different. We don't want to tow folks' cars as much as possible. So we looked at and talked with a little bit more about what does community need and or want, understand our city policy, apply a racial equity lens to understand the impacts that the snow emergency policy has on our BIPOC community, right? And so from that work, there was a determination that a change in the policy could have an adverse impact, and they did not approve any changes. So using a model of direct multilingual engagement methods, they saw a 98% increase in input over the traditional communication methods used to collect feedback. So the engagement model for collecting feedback was used in additional city efforts, including neighborhood improvement programs. And since then, we started a pilot program to try to be in much better relationship, particularly in some multifamily units. So apartment complexes that we know maybe have high turnover and have a lot of on-street parking. And so how do we have better relationships so that we can get in touch with the end users more effectively so that it doesn't end up just being a, hey, we sent out an email and a text message, and if you didn't get it, you didn't move your car. Too bad, too sad. So we've got a pilot program going on right now. Obviously, last year didn't snow a ton, so it wasn't really easy to determine how effective that was. But we've got a couple of areas where we've tried to do some unique things around relationship building with the property managers, getting information out to folks, and then also to not just like ticketing and towing cars, but trying to be more in relationship with community so that, you know, because sometimes it's like, hey, maybe you work nights and you didn't know that there was a snow emergency. Then you wake up at 4 p.m. and everyone is gone and your car's either buried in or it's gone because someone towed it. So how do we, you know, give some grace in those types of situations, and then also like provide a safe, well-connected transportation system like communities ask for, right? So I've got to think, I think there's 3 or 4 pilot areas within the community that we've got some really good relationships with that we're looking forward to seeing how does a new way of doing this other than just sending out an email communicate that there's a snow emergency. Some other activities that the GARE group, the DEI strategy team, some all-staff trainings to normalize racial equity as part of the daily mindset of a city employee, right? So one of GARE's big philosophies is you have to normalize stuff first. Then you have to, normalize it, organize it, and then you have to operationalize it. So you can't get to like we're trying to operationalize racial equity and do things in operations without normalizing it first, right? We have to be able to talk about racial equity before we can actually get to like operationalizing it in finance or parks or public works. So part of that is always about learning and development for staff because those are the folks that make decisions. 2040 comprehensive plan incorporated a racial equity lens on the decisions that were made in that 2040 plan. Updated the zoning code to identify and remove seemingly race-neutral provisions that have had the effect of fortifying structures of racial segregation and to incorporate provisions intended to foster diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. So I think that that's about some of our work around, like there's some harm because some of the deeds in Roseville still have like racially restricted covenant language in them that says you can't sell this home to a non-white person. Not that you can enforce that by law, but it's still there, right? So that's still harmful. So some of that can happen in that space. And then, you know, obviously just communities oftentimes live in community within a community. So you may notice that there's parts of the community that are maybe higher BIPOC community or maybe higher white community. So how do we be intentional about saying, hey, maybe we want more multifamily zones so that we can have more duplexes or multifamily houses in our housing stock. Let's see here. The next one that they did was the commitment to diversity staffing program in the police department to retain eligible and qualified community service officers, cadets, and reserve officers that are considered minorities in law enforcement. So just how are we a representative law enforcement agency, I think is what I read from this. That's really important. The MAC, the Multicultural Advisory Committee, you may have heard about that. But that's just a group of community folks that have come together to partner with our law enforcement professionals and have hard conversations and do the hard work around, there's always not a ton of trust. I think Roseville Police has a stronger relationship with community than other communities, but there's not always super strong trust with every part of our community. So the MAC is really critical. We obviously have the first racial equity action plan. We're looking at that right now. So incorporating equity and inclusion principles into RFP scoring plans. So RFPs are requests for proposals. I won't get super big detail, but essentially when the city wants to do something and we need to spend money to do something, there are rules in place that require us to do a competitive open solicitation process. So it's basically saying, hey, we have a problem, or we need support doing something. Tell us how you would do it. And then people can respond to that with their, here's how I would do it, here's how much it would cost, and here's the things that matter to me as I do them. So when we make decisions about that, oftentimes it's like, well, does it fit our budget? And then is it delivering what we said we wanted to do, right? So when we say we're gonna incorporate equity and inclusion principles into that, what that looks like is, not only is it in our budget and is it what we wanted to do, but it's also, are you doing it in a way that's gonna represent our entire community? Are you doing it in a way that's gonna be inclusive of our entire community? Or is it just a small group of folks that have one perspective, one lens, and that's what they're gonna bring to the project? Does that make sense? You all may have known that we had a park named Pocahontas Park in Roseville. Did y'all know that? Yeah. So there was a lot of conversation about changing that name. I'm pretty sure that name changed, didn't it?
Yes.
What did it change to?
Remember.
I don't remember either.
Where's that at?
Let me see if I can find it real quick. I should have pulled this up already. Sorry, y'all. Kia Park is what it's called now. Kia, Keya. And Kia Park is, let me pull up Google Maps here. We have so many parks here.
We really do actually, yeah.
Yeah.
We do. We have a ton. I forget how many. I just was in a conversation this week. I think Matt said we have 36 parks.
Sweet.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big Roseville was until I'm like, oh, this is a Roseville Park over here. I'm like, wow.
He was saying that I think it's 93% of Roseville residents are within like a 10-minute walk of a park or natural space.
It's incredible.
So good, isn't it? So Kia Park is not far from us right here. So if you go down County Road C to Hamlin, and you would take a left, so you'd be going towards Highway 36, you get to Brooks Avenue.
Oh, I biked by there like yesterday.
Yeah, so then you take a right, and that'd be towards like Snelling, and then Kia Park is right there on your right. So it's kind of in the square of County Road C, Hamlin, County Road B to Snelling. It's in that little square.
And was that the only park with a problematic name, or was this?
So that's a good question. I don't know the history of all the names of the folks that are on all of our parks. And I think that, there's a lot of, I think about often Ramsey County, named after Alexander Ramsey, who was a, critical person of advancing Minnesota and all this stuff. And at the same time, just a terrible history as we're thinking about Indigenous Peoples Day that we just recognized, just a terrible history with our Indigenous Native people of this land, right? So I don't know the history of all the names of all of our locations and if there's anything behind some of those, but it's something that we could look into if that was something that the commission was like, we want.
Right, yeah. But at least at the time, this particular park felt like the one that was the most
Yes.
important to
Yes. Our park team is really about this, which I really love from Matt and team and other folks. But just as we're like investing in our infrastructure in parks, just making sure they're accessible for everyone, regardless of their ability or disability, right? Like, what does that look like? And I can share with you all that Matt and the parks team have a really strong relationship with a person that's differently abled, and that person oftentimes will provide input and feedback and design and just say, you know, because it's not always about like if someone's wheelchair bound and they need to be able to access every single part, but it's about sometimes it's like, hey, to be feeling like I'm included, this would make a really big difference. So I know they've been really intentional about that, which I'm super proud of for that team. I know they're super proud of it. So I would just share more, you know, more work obviously continues. This was in 2021, so we could probably add a bunch of stuff to this. We did in June or July. We went to the council. Every year we do an equity update. So each department talks a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing around equity and inclusion. So that's a meeting that if you were wanting to check in on, but they just kind of highlight the things that they've done over the last 12 months in terms of how they're advancing equity and inclusion. And I think that's the piece we're looking forward. I really want to leverage those equity and inclusion action plans and thinking about here's the things that we did, here's the things that we want to do. So next time when I come in front of you, I've got some accountability to say we said we were going to do this 12 months ago and we did it, or we said we were going to do it 12 months ago and we didn't do it, and here's why, right? So I think that that's an opportunity for us to do that.
So would the June 2024 recording be on the website somewhere then? Okay.
Yep, it'd be one of the city council meetings. I could probably find it if I took enough time in doing it, but yeah, it was the equity updates. I'm trying to think, that might even be in here. I might have a date on this thing, let me just see quick. If I had to bet, I would say, let's see if this opens. Usually I put a date on this, but it doesn't look like I did. So this was it, but I don't remember what date this was. It just says 2024, sorry y'all. Yeah. Okay. So it'd be probably June. I think it was in June. Yeah. So that was a lot of stuff. And so that was where the work kind of really started, right? Is there was specific things that we're calling out. And I think one of the things that I sit with is things are great because they're kind of tangible. We can see them. But things always end up being like fixing that squeaky wheel and not necessarily like changing the direction, right? So a lot of the work that I want to focus on is how do we really change the mental models and really embed equity and inclusion into the foundation of our work so that it's always present. It's not just Antonio walked in and we got to talk about equity and inclusion, but it's like the people that are making decisions regularly that don't always seem to be like an equity thing end up having equity included in them because we've really made it a part of who we are. We've made it a part of the way that we do our work, and that's the expectation. So that's kind of the thing. So I think we gotta do both and. We gotta identify some specific things, which is where those action plans will come into play, but we also have to go on these individual journeys on how folks that are making decisions around budget and programming and services and the way people experience Roseville as an organization, those folks are also thinking about equity all the time. And that's where like hopefully, our equity and inclusion leadership team meetings that we're having and we're talking about these things and centering them are things that just kind of start to happen. I always use this as an example. You all haven't bought a car yet, but have you thought about buying a car? Like, is there a car that you want to buy if you had the money?
Camaro.
A Camaro. Perfect. You all probably have bought a car at some point in your life. And I use this analogy all the time. So when I want to buy a car, do you just go out and buy it, or do you do some research on it first and think about it for a little bit? Yeah, that's kind of been your experience. So when you're in that phase and you're like, okay, I want to buy a Jeep. When you're driving around, what do you always see?
Jeeps everywhere.
Because you've decided you want to buy a Jeep. Or if it's a Subaru, right? You're like, I want to buy a Subaru. I want to get one of those little WRXs, right? And all of a sudden you start seeing WRXs all the time. And you're like, why am I seeing these all the time all of a sudden? Well, it's because you've raised it to your conscious level of processing, and you've named it, and you're like, I'm thinking about it. So when you see a Jeep, it's not that everybody just started buying Jeeps and they're all flooding the market. You just have brought it to your conscious that you want to buy a Jeep. So now you start to see it all the time, right? And so my work, I feel like, is really about getting folks to that point where they're like, equity and inclusion is something that we're about, so that every time they're making decisions, they're seeing that Jeep or they're seeing that Subaru or whatever it is that they want to buy, right? So that's kind of the way that I see our work happening. So there's that. It's 3 minutes to 8, and I don't want to hold y'all much longer than this. So what I'll end with here is this is available online, and there's some stuff that we're going to get into. So the city of Roseville made some commitments around our equity and inclusion work, our racial equity and inclusion work. These are the things that we said we were going to do. There's a lot of them. I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things that we said we were going to commit to. We'll talk about some commitments. Here was the purpose. What are we going to do here? So what I would like to do is, between now and our next meeting, take some time to sit with this. We won't go through every single line because it does get into some stuff that's the plan development, things like that. We can talk about some of these components if you're like, hey, I really want to talk about this and understand a little bit more. So what I would offer is that between now and our next meeting, review this, write down your questions, whatever you have. Let's come together. This definition piece is also really important because I think we talked about this last time we were together. If I said diversity, we probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different opinions on our definitions of what is diversity. Same thing around ethnicity, same thing around equity and inclusion. So it's important that we have some shared language. This will be the document that kind of gives us that shared language for the most part. Not that we can't say we have some different perspectives on it, but this was where we should start and try to figure out what does that look like. So take some time, review it, sit with it, write down your questions. Let's come back together next time we're together to just say, hey, here's what we're thinking, here's what we want to talk about, here's the parts that we want to know more about. If you can get that to me before the meeting, that'd be great, because then I can help prep. We can prep for that as the chair of the commission and the vice chair of the commission. We can prep for that. And we just use our time wisely, so.
And what is this called again?
This is the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. So I can email this to you all, if that's helpful, or it's a part of our agenda, or go to your favorite web browser, type in City of Roseville, Minnesota, because there's a City of Roseville, California. We talked about this. If you go to our website and you see up here on this search bar or this taskbar, your government, there's a racial equity and inclusion page, and this is all of our racial equity and inclusion stuff. And right here is the link for the Racial Equity Action Plan. So you go there and the document pulls up. So if that's easier for you, I can email it to you, whatever is clever, whatever works. So with that, I would say that it's 8 o'clock. We'll pick this discussion back up. So we'll start with the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan. And there's some other stuff that we'll talk about for the agenda. I'll send an email reminder going forward, just maybe a week before, best I can, to say, hey, here you go. And that's it. Do we have any other business that y'all want to talk about or need to talk about? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
Okay, are we gonna discuss the, excuse me, the city emails?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll do that. Yes. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Cause it's just you two and then we'll get you one.
Okay.
You and Prash. Okay. Any other business? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to get y'all out of here.
Motion to end the meeting.
All right?
Again?
It's been moved and properly seconded by Commissioner Vemi Reddy and Commissioner Chan that we end our October meeting. I hereby close the meeting at 8:01 p.m. I appreciate y'all.